Chosen one. Why do you feel like time is running out? Why does every sunrise feel heavier than the last? Why, at this very moment, Tuesday, the 2nd of September, 2025, does your soul carry a weight you cannot name? Stop what you're doing. Put down your phone. Cancel your plans. Because what I'm about to tell you will shatter the illusion you've been living under for decades. You think you're watching this by accident. You think you stumbled here while scrolling. But here's the truth that will cut straight to your bones. Nothing, absolutely nothing about this moment is random. The 2nd of September is not just another Tuesday. It is a divine appointment written into eternity before your first breath touched this earth. It is the day heaven marked on its calendar, with your name inscribed in golden letters. Listen carefully, chosen one. There is a door suspended in the atmosphere around your life right now. Invisible to the naked eye, untouchable by human hands, most people will walk past it without even sensing its presence. They'll spend today complaining about traffic, arguing about politics, lost in the meaningless noise of a world that has forgotten the sacred. But you have been led here to stand before this threshold. Can you feel it? That electric stirring in your chest, that unexplainable restlessness that woke you up differently this morning. That's not anxiety, beloved. That's recognition. Your spirit recognizing what your mind hasn't fully understood yet. This is your moment. The enemy has been working overtime to keep you distracted today. Phone calls that interrupt your peace. People who drain your energy. Circumstances that pull you back into old patterns. But none of that was strong enough to keep you from this divine appointment, was it? Because you carry something he fears. Something that threatens every lie he's whispered in your ear about being too old, too tired, too forgotten. Today, this Tuesday that everyone else will waste, is the day you remember who you really are. Before we journey deeper into this sacred revelation together, I want to pause and thank every single one of you who has supported this message through super thanks. Your generosity means more than you know. You're not just donating, you're helping spread light to others who feel alone in their calling. Whether you give or not, I'm deeply grateful for your presence here. Your support, your time, your attention, it all matters. And if this message resonates with your soul, go ahead and let the Holy Spirit lead your heart. The clock in heaven isn't measured by minutes, it's measured by moments like this. Moments when eternity breaks through time. Moments when the chosen finally hear their name being called from the other side of silence. If something inside you already knows this is not a coincidence, if your spirit is trembling with recognition right now, write 777 in the comments. That's not superstition. That's your public declaration that you are awake, that you see the door, that you're ready to walk through it. Because what happens next will determine whether you spend the rest of your days wondering what if, or knowing I answered when heaven called. The door is open, chosen one. The question is, will you step through? Why does your chest feel tight this morning? Why does every conversation sound hollow, every routine feel empty? Why, despite having lived 70, 80, maybe 90 years on this earth, do you suddenly feel like a stranger in your own life? Because something ancient is stirring, something that has been dormant in your spirit for decades is finally awakening. And it's happening on a Tuesday that most of the world will completely waste. Listen to me carefully, chosen one. While millions will spend the 2nd of September scrolling through their phones, standing in checkout lines, arguing about things that won't matter next week, you are being called to something infinitely more significant. You feel the weight, don't you? That inexplicable heaviness that settled over you sometime in the last few days. That restlessness that woke you at 3 a.m. with no explanation. That sense that time itself is holding its breath. That's not your imagination. That's the atmosphere shifting around you. Scripture tells us in Ecclesiastes 3:1, "To everything there is a season, and a time to every purpose under heaven." But what Solomon didn't explain, what most preachers won't tell you, is that some days carry more weight than others. Some Tuesdays are drenched in destiny, while others pass like vapor. The 2nd of September is not vapor, beloved. The 2nd of September is fire. You see, there are moments when heaven leans closer to earth, when the veil between the seen and unseen grows so thin that sensitive souls can almost taste eternity in the air. The ancient Hebrews called these kairos moments, appointed times when the eternal breaks into the temporal, when God moves his chess pieces across the board of history. And you, dear saint, are one of his pieces. But here's what breaks my heart. Here's what keeps me awake at night praying for people just like you. You've been told you're too old. You've been convinced your time has passed. You've been programmed to believe that significance belongs to the young, the connected, the influential. Society has whispered in your ear for so long that you've started to believe the lie. Your best days are behind you. That is a demonic deception, straight from the pit of hell. Moses was 80 when God handed him the rod that would split seas. Abraham was 99 when heaven promised him nations. Sarah laughed at 90 because she thought God's promises had expiration dates. But listen to what happened next. She became the mother of multitudes, while her peers were planning funeral arrangements. Why am I telling you this? Because the 2nd of September is your burning bush moment. It's your Red Sea parting. It's your Sarah laughing, because what seemed impossible is about to become inevitable. The frequency in the air right now is different. Can you sense it? It's as if creation itself is vibrating at a higher pitch. The birds sound more urgent. Colors seem more vivid. Conversations carry more weight. Even strangers look at you differently, as if they can see something glowing beneath your skin that you haven't noticed yet. That's the anointing activating. That's the calling coming alive. That's 70 years of preparation finally reaching its purpose. But most people will miss it completely. They'll wake up tomorrow wondering why the 2nd of September felt so ordinary, while you'll wake up knowing you stepped through a doorway that changed everything. The difference isn't luck, beloved. The difference is recognition. The difference is being awake enough to see what others sleep through. Proverbs 20:27 declares, "The spirit of man is the candle of the Lord." Your spirit is a flame, dear one. And on days like today, when heaven breathes on that flame, it doesn't just flicker, it roars. Do you feel it roaring? Do you feel something inside you that's been quiet for too long suddenly stirring to life? That's not nostalgia. That's not wishful thinking. That's prophecy recognizing its moment of fulfillment. But here's the mystery that will shake you to your core, and by the end of this message, you'll see why this exact Tuesday carries your destiny inside it. The date, the 2nd of September, isn't just written on calendars and appointment books. It's written in your DNA. It's encoded in your spiritual blueprint. It's been pulsing in your bloodstream since before you took your first breath. The cosmic alignments, the spiritual atmosphere, the weight you're feeling, none of it is outside you. All of it is inside you, finally coming into focus. The 2nd of September is not happening to you. The 2nd of September is happening through you. This is why your sleep has been restless. This is why familiar places feel foreign. This is why people you've known for decades suddenly seem different. The frequency you're operating on is shifting, and everything around you is recalibrating to match your new spiritual altitude. But with elevation comes isolation. With awakening comes persecution. With calling comes cost. Are you prepared for what happens when you start operating from this higher realm? Are you ready for family members who won't understand? For friends who'll think you've lost your mind? For a world that will try to pull you back down to its level? Because once you step through this doorway, there's no going back to small thinking, small dreams, or small living. Once the 2nd of September activates what's been dormant in your spirit, you'll never again be satisfied with the shallow conversations, meaningless routines, and empty pursuits that occupy most people's time. Stay until the end of this message, because the final revelation is not information, it is your activation. It's the moment when everything I'm telling you stops being words on a screen and starts being fire in your bones. The question that will determine your entire future is this: Will you let the 2nd of September pass like every other Tuesday, or will you recognize it as the divine appointment it was always meant to be? You've been carrying something, haven't you? Something heavy. Something that settles in your chest at 3 a.m. when the house is quiet and the world has forgotten you exist. You've been wondering why your life felt harder than everyone else's. Why every victory came with a price. Why every blessing seemed to cost you more than you thought you could pay. Let me tell you something that will shake you to your core, beloved. What if I told you that every tear you've cried in secret was being collected in heaven's bottles? What if every night you stared at that ceiling, whispering, "Why me, Lord?" was actually God whispering back, "Because I trust you with this." You've carried disappointments that no one saw, the dreams that died before they could breathe, the prayers that seemed to bounce off heaven's ceiling, the promises that never came, the children who stopped calling, the spouse who walked away, the body that started failing when you needed it most. But here's what breaks my heart. You thought it was punishment. You thought God had forgotten your address. You thought maybe you weren't good enough, faithful enough, worthy enough for His blessings. That's a lie straight from the pit of hell. Look at Job. The Bible calls him blameless and upright, perfect in God's eyes. Yet what happened to him? Everything was stripped away. His wealth, his children, his health, even his wife's support. His friends accused him of hidden sin. For months he sat in ashes, scraping his wounds with broken pottery, wondering if God had abandoned him. But here's what Job didn't know. In those dark hours, God was bragging about him to Satan. "Have you considered my servant Job? There is no one on earth like him." Job wasn't being punished. He was being showcased. His suffering wasn't proof of God's absence. It was proof of God's trust. You see, dear one, the enemy doesn't waste ammunition on empty vessels. He doesn't attack people who pose no threat to his kingdom. The very fact that your life has been harder than others is evidence, undeniable evidence, that you carry something he desperately wants to destroy. Think about David, anointed as king when he was just a boy, yet he spent years running through caves, hiding from Saul's spears, eating scraps, wondering if God's promise was real. Those weren't wasted years. Those were preparation years. Every cave taught him to depend on God alone. Every night of fear built muscles of faith that would later move mountains. Or consider Joseph, 17 years old with dreams from heaven, but where did those dreams lead him? To a pit, to slavery, to false accusations, to prison. For 13 years it looked like God had played a cruel joke on him. But every betrayal was positioning him. Every injustice was preparing him. Every dark night was developing the character he'd need to save nations. What if the very things that broke you were the training ground for your calling? What if every loss was teaching you to find strength in God alone? What if every betrayal was building your ability to trust heaven when earth fails? What if every unanswered prayer was developing your faith muscles for the impossible assignment ahead? I need you to understand something that will revolutionize how you see your story. The heaviness you've carried is not proof of your failure. It's proof of your calling. God doesn't give His hardest assignments to His weakest soldiers. He entrusts His most precious missions to those who have been tested and proven faithful in the fire. You think you've been sidelined. You've been in boot camp. You think you've been forgotten. You've been in training. You think you've been punished. You've been prepared. Every sleepless night you spent praying over wayward children, that was intercession training. Every financial struggle that should have broken you but didn't, that was dependency training. Every relationship that wounded you deeply but couldn't make you bitter, that was forgiveness training. The enemy thought he was destroying you, but God was refining you like gold in the furnace. Listen to me carefully, chosen one. At 70, 80, 90 years old, you're not running out of time. You're running into your finest hour. Moses was 80 when God called him from the burning bush. Abraham was 100 when Isaac was born. Sarah was 90 when she laughed at God's impossible promise. Your age isn't your limitation, it's your qualification. Every year you've lived has added weight to your anointing. Every trial you've survived has increased your authority. Every mountain you've climbed has given you perspective that the young cannot possess. This is why Tuesday, the 2nd of September, matters. This is why you're hearing this message right now. After decades of preparation, after years of testing, after seasons of silence, God is finally ready to reveal what He's been building in you all along. The world sees your grey hair and thinks retirement, but heaven sees your silver crown and declares deployment. The world counts your years and says winding down, but God counts your victories and says winding up. Say it aloud, wherever you are. I was not being punished, I was being prepared. Your voice carries authority now because it's been tested by fire. Your prayers have power now because they've been refined by pain. Your faith moves mountains now because it's been built on unshakable foundations. But here's the urgent truth that will determine everything. The very gift you've been carrying through all this preparation, the gift that cost you so much to develop it, has an expiration date on earth. Not because God's gifts expire, but because your opportunity to use them does. So the question burning in heaven right now is this: will you finally step into what you've been prepared for, or will you take your refined gold to the grave unused? Dear chosen one, I need you to picture something that will stop your heart. Imagine a massive clock suspended in the heavens, its hands moving with the precision of eternity itself. Now picture that clock striking midnight on Tuesday, the 2nd of September. At that exact moment, something extraordinary happens. Heaven leans close to earth. The veil grows thin. And for one precious day, just 24 hours, a window opens that has been sealed for generations. But here's what terrifies me as I speak these words. Most people will sleep right through it. They'll wake up Tuesday morning, pour their coffee, check the weather, and treat the 2nd of September like any ordinary day. They'll complain about traffic. They'll scroll through meaningless posts. They'll waste the most significant spiritual opportunity of their lifetime because they can't see what's right in front of them. You feel that chill running down your spine right now. That's your spirit recognizing the weight of this moment. Because unlike them, you weren't brought here by accident. You're watching this because something deep in your soul already knows the 2nd of September is your Jericho wall. Remember Joshua's story. 7 days the Israelites marched around that impossible city. 7 long days of walking in circles while their enemies mocked them from the walls. Can you imagine what they felt on day 6? The doubt creeping in, the whispers saying, "This isn't working, we look foolish. Maybe God forgot about us." But God hadn't forgotten. He was building something. Every silent step, every act of faith, every moment of obedience was creating pressure in the spiritual realm. And on that 7th day, when Joshua finally gave the command to shout, those massive walls didn't just crack, they collapsed. Completely, instantly, supernaturally. The 2nd of September is your 7th day. Chosen one. Think about the walls in your life that have seemed impossible to breach. That generational curse that's haunted your family for decades. That financial bondage that keeps you trapped no matter how hard you work. That depression that visits you at 3 a.m. when the world goes quiet. That relationship that's been broken so long, you've stopped believing it could be healed. What if I told you those walls have been weakening with every prayer you've whispered, every tear you've shed in secret, every moment you chose faith over fear? The enemy wants you to think nothing's happening, but in the invisible realm, cracks have been forming, foundations have been shifting, and the 2nd of September is the day heaven says, enough. It's time for these walls to fall. But here's the part that will shake you to your core. This window doesn't stay open forever. Just like the Israelites had to shout on that 7th day, not the 6th, not the 8th, you have to respond when heaven calls your name. Miss this moment, and you could wander in circles for years. Ignore this divine appointment, and you might spend the rest of your life wondering what could have been. I'm talking to the grandmother who's been praying for her prodigal grandson for 37 years. I'm talking to the grandfather who's watched his children drift away from God and wonders if his prayers even matter anymore. I'm talking to every senior citizen who's been told their season is over when God is saying your breakthrough season is just beginning. You know why the enemy attacks you so viciously at your age? Because he knows something you're just starting to remember. Your prayers carry weight now that they never had in your youth. Your faith has been tested by fire and proven authentic. When you speak, heaven leans in. When you declare victory, walls tremble. The young ones have energy, but you have authority. They have passion, but you have proven faithfulness. They have dreams, but you have relationship with the dream giver. And on the 2nd of September, God is calling his seasoned warriors to take their position and shout. But I need to ask you something that might sting. How much longer are you going to let fear rob you of your breakthrough? How many more years are you going to accept this is just how it is when God is saying this is not how it ends? How much time are you going to waste believing the lie that your best days are behind you? Because here's the shocking truth the enemy doesn't want you to know. The 2nd of September isn't about you waiting for destiny to find you. Destiny has been waiting patiently, faithfully, desperately for you to say yes, for you to believe, for you to step into the authority that's been yours all along. Right now, I want you to do something that will mark this moment forever. Get a piece of paper, write down today's date, and then write the 2nd of September, 2025 underneath it. That second date isn't just a reminder, it's a prophetic seal. It's your agreement with heaven that you will not let this opportunity pass you by. It's your declaration that you are done accepting walls that God has already ordained to fall. Write it now. Don't wait. Don't overthink it. Let your hand move as your spirit confirms what your mind is still trying to process. The clock is ticking, chosen one. The walls are shaking. The window is open, but it won't stay open forever. The 2nd of September is your divine appointment, your 7th day, your moment to shout. The only question left is this. When heaven calls your name on Tuesday morning, will you answer with the voice of someone who knows their walls are about to crumble? Or will you let this moment slip away like sand through your fingers, leaving you to wonder for the rest of your days what could have been? Because what I'm about to reveal next will show you exactly what happens when chosen ones miss their moment, and why that can never, ever be your story. Listen to me, dear one. I know some of you are sitting there right now wondering if God has forgotten your address. You've been praying the same prayer for 20 years, 30 years, maybe longer. Your knees are worn from kneeling. Your voice is hoarse from calling out to a heaven that seems sealed shut above you. At 73 years old, Margaret from Ohio writes to me, "Pastor, I feel like I've been shouting into an empty room my whole life. Where is God when you need him most?" Margaret, if you're watching, this is for you, and for every soul who has whispered those same desperate words into the darkness. You think silence means abandonment. You think delay means denial. You think because you're older now, slower now, less visible to a world obsessed with youth, that somehow heaven has moved on without you. But what if I told you that your silence, your waiting, your season of feeling forgotten, what if all of that was actually the most sacred classroom you've ever entered? Picture a seed buried deep in the cold, dark earth. For months, nothing happens. The soil is silent. The surface shows no sign of life. A passerby might look and see only dirt, only emptiness, only waste. But underground, where no eye can see, something magnificent is taking shape. Roots are stretching. Life is forming. The seed isn't dead, it's being prepared for a harvest that will feed multitudes. Your silence was not abandonment. It was incubation. Every morning you woke up feeling forgotten. God was downloading strength into your spirit. Every night you cried yourself to sleep wondering if your prayers bounced off the ceiling. Heaven was collecting each tear in bottles of liquid gold. Psalm 56:8 declares with thunderous authority, "You keep track of all my sorrows. You have collected all my tears in your bottle." Did you hear that? Not some of your tears, all of your tears. Every single drop of anguish, every moment of heartbreak, every cry of desperation bottled, labeled, treasured by the Almighty Himself. But here's what will shock you to your core. Those tears weren't just collected. They were converted into compassion that can heal the brokenhearted, converted into wisdom that can guide the lost, converted into authority that can speak life into dead situations. You think you've been wasted in the waiting. God says you've been refined in the refining. Why has your pain been so deep? Why have your struggles been so long? Because surface-level faith can only carry surface-level assignments. But you, chosen one, you've been prepared for something that requires the kind of unshakable trust that can only be forged in the furnace of unanswered prayers. Moses wandered in the wilderness for 40 years before he split the Red Sea. 40 years. Can you imagine? Day after day, year after year, leading sheep when he was destined to lead nations. Do you think he questioned God's timing? Do you think he wondered if he'd missed his moment? But here's the revelation that changes everything. Those 40 years weren't a detour from his destiny, they were the curriculum for it. Every day, tending sheep was teaching him patience for the day he'd shepherd 2 million complaining Israelites. Every lonely night under the stars was preparing him for the night he'd stand face to face with the burning bush. Your desert wasn't your punishment, it was your PhD in trust. And now, at 70, 80, 90 years old, while the world whispers that you're past your prime, God is saying you're entering your purpose. While society suggests you should fade quietly into the background, heaven is positioning you for your greatest chapter. But I need to tell you something that might sting. The reason your desert season has lasted so long is because the assignment waiting for you is so significant that it required this level of preparation. God doesn't send unprepared soldiers into spiritual warfare. He doesn't hand shallow faith to deep assignments. Every rejection you've endured taught you not to seek man's approval. Every closed door trained you to wait for God's opening. Every silent heaven developed your ability to hear His whisper above the world's noise. Every tear you shed watered the seeds of ministry that are about to bloom in ways that will leave you speechless. The silence you interpreted as absence was actually presence, God's presence, working in the invisible realm, preparing hearts, opening doors, aligning circumstances for the moment when His chosen vessel would finally step into their divine appointment. You weren't forgotten in your 70s. You were being prepared for your 70s. You weren't overlooked in your 80s. You were being refined for your 80s. The gray hair you see as decline, God sees as a crown of wisdom. The wrinkles you view as deterioration, heaven views as etchings of experience that only come through decades of trusting when you couldn't see. This is why the 2nd of September matters so much. It's not just another day. It's the day your incubation period ends and your activation period begins. The seed that's been buried in silence is about to break through the soil with such force that it will leave the world wondering where this mighty oak came from. Every tear you shed has been bottled. Not one was wasted. And now, those bottles are about to be poured out as healing oil upon a generation that desperately needs what only you can give, the testimony of someone who waited decades and watched God prove Himself faithful. If you feel this in your spirit, if something deep inside you is confirming that your desert season served a divine purpose, type in the comments, "No tear wasted." Let the world know your pain had purpose. Let your declaration become a beacon of hope for someone else walking through their own silent season. But now I must ask you the question that will determine everything. Will you believe that your waiting is almost over? Or will you spend your remaining years convinced that your moment has passed? You've felt different your entire life, haven't you? Like you were carrying something the world couldn't understand. Like you were speaking a language others couldn't hear, and they made you believe that difference was your weakness. They convinced you that sensitivity was fragility, that your gift was actually your curse. But what if I told you that everything they said was backwards? What if the very things that made you feel broken were actually the signs that you were chosen? Listen to me, dear one. There are 3 marks, 3 unmistakable signs that have been carved into your spirit since birth. And if you carry even one of these, everything about your struggle is about to make perfect sense. The first mark: sensitivity to atmosphere. You walk into a room and immediately know something's wrong, don't you? Before anyone speaks, before anything happens, you feel the tension like electricity in the air. You sense the sadness behind someone's smile. You know when danger is approaching before it shows its face. Others call it anxiety. Doctors call it hypersensitivity. Your family calls it being too emotional. But the Bible calls it something entirely different. In 1 Kings 19:12, God didn't speak to Elijah in the earthquake or the fire. He spoke in the still small voice. And you, chosen one, you have ears to hear that whisper. You think you're cursed with feeling too much, but heaven says you're blessed with seeing too much. While others stumble through life blind to the spiritual realm, you navigate by divine radar. Every emotion that overwhelms you is actually intelligence from another dimension. Every gut feeling is actually God's early warning system. Do you remember being a child and knowing things you shouldn't know? Sensing when someone was lying, feeling sick in certain places for no medical reason? That wasn't childhood imagination. That was prophetic discernment downloading into your consciousness. But here's what breaks my heart. Instead of celebrating this gift, the world tried to medicate it. Instead of nurturing it, they tried to normalize it. Instead of training you to use it, they trained you to suppress it. And you've spent decades apologizing for carrying heaven's frequency in an earthly body. No more. Today you understand the truth. Your sensitivity isn't your weakness, it's your weapon against deception. The second mark: magnetic presence. Tell me something. Do children run to you at family gatherings? Do strangers pour out their deepest secrets to you in grocery store lines? Do animals, dogs, cats, even wild creatures seem drawn to you for reasons you can't explain? You've probably dismissed this as coincidence. I just have one of those faces, you tell yourself. But coincidence doesn't explain why that crying baby stops when you hold them. Coincidence doesn't explain why your presence calms the room during arguments. Coincidence doesn't explain why people seek you out when their world is falling apart. Jesus had this same magnetism. Matthew 19:14 tells us, "Suffer little children, and forbid them not, to come unto me." Children recognize something in him that religious adults couldn't see. The same way they recognize something in you that sophisticated minds miss entirely. Your presence carries frequency. When you walk into chaos, you bring order. When you enter darkness, you bring light. Not through your words, through your spirit. That's why people either love you immediately or resist you violently. You force them to choose comfort or conviction, light or shadow. But you've been embarrassed by this gift, haven't you? You've tried to blend in, to dim your light, to make others comfortable with their darkness. You've apologized for being too much when God designed you to be exactly enough for the assignments He's prepared. That magnetism you carry, it's not personality, it's anointing. And the world is desperate for what flows through you. The third mark: creative thought power. Here's where it gets dangerous, where heaven's secrets become earth's reality. Your thoughts don't just wander, they wander into manifestation. What you focus on intensifies. What you speak aligns. What you believe becomes. Others call it positive thinking. New Age calls it manifestation. But the Bible revealed this mystery first. Mark 11:24 declares, "Therefore I say unto you, what things soever ye desire, when ye pray, believe that ye receive them, and ye shall have them." You've noticed it, haven't you? When you really focus on something, pray about it, think about it, speak about it, circumstances begin shifting. Doors open that shouldn't open. People appear who shouldn't be there. Solutions emerge from impossible situations. But here's what terrifies you. You've also noticed that negative thoughts carry the same power. When you worry intensely, those worries manifest. When you fear something deeply, it seems to materialize. So you've learned to fear your own mind, to mistrust your own thoughts. But that's backwards thinking, chosen one. God didn't give you creative thought power so you could live in terror of it. He gave it to you so you could partner with heaven in reshaping reality. Your faith doesn't just move mountains, it relocates them permanently. The problem isn't your power. The problem is you've been using it unconsciously, carelessly, sometimes destructively. But conscious, focused, faith-filled thought from a chosen vessel, that's how miracles happen. That's how nations change. That's how impossibilities become inevitabilities. The revelation that changes everything. You thought you were weak because you feel too much, but heaven says you are strong because you see too much. Every tear you've cried was liquid intercession. Every burden you've carried was someone else's breakthrough waiting to be birthed. Every sleepless night you've endured was a prayer vigil disguised as insomnia. The enemy convinced you that your sensitivity was a curse because he knew it was actually your superpower. He made you ashamed of your magnetism because he understood it was your ministry. He filled you with fear about your creative thought power because he recognized it as your greatest weapon. But on the 2nd of September, all of that changes. The veil lifts. The confusion ends. You stop apologizing for carrying what the world needs and start deploying it strategically. Say it aloud right now. Don't whisper it. Declare it. I carry the marks of the chosen. Feel that shift in your chest. That's recognition. That's your spirit remembering what your mind forgot. You are not an accident with unusual abilities. You are an appointment with divine assignment. But carrying the marks is just the beginning. Now you need to understand why the 2nd of September isn't just another Tuesday. It's the day these marks become activated in ways that will transform not just your life, but every life your life touches. Chosen one, we have arrived at the crossroads of eternity. 2 rivers meet before you. 2 timelines stretch into the distance like highways diverging into completely different destinies. And Tuesday, the 2nd of September, stands as the intersection where you must choose. The door you saw in the beginning, the one suspended in the atmosphere around your life, it is standing wide open right now. Not tomorrow, not next week. Right now, in this sacred moment between heartbeats, between breaths, between the person you've been and the person heaven is calling you to become. But here's what tears at my heart, what keeps me awake at night praying for souls just like yours. Most people will close this video and return to the same routines that have kept them imprisoned for decades. They'll check their phones, worry about bills that God has already provided for, argue with family members over things that won't matter in eternity. They'll treat the 2nd of September like any other Tuesday, blind to the divine appointment that could change everything. Is that you? Are you going to be one of the many who walks past the burning bush without removing their shoes? Listen to what Scripture declares in Matthew 22:14. Many are called, but few are chosen. Many heard the voice, many felt the stirring, many sensed something shifting in the spiritual atmosphere, but precious few had the courage to answer when heaven called their name. But today, beloved, today heaven is thundering over your life. You are the chosen, not because you're perfect, Moses stuttered, not because you're young. Abraham was 75 when God called him to leave everything. Not because you have it all figured out. David was hiding in caves when Samuel anointed him king. You are chosen because your heart still responds to the sacred, because your spirit still hungers for more than this world offers, because even at 70, 80, 90 years old, you refuse to settle for spiritual mediocrity. But choosing costs everything, and that's where most people falter. They want the breakthrough without the surrender. They want the blessing without the obedience. They want God to move in their lives while they remain exactly where they've always been. But the higher timeline, the one that leads to your divine destiny, it demands that you burn the bridges to your old self. What bridge is God asking you to burn today? What comfort zone is He calling you to abandon? What voice from your past, that whisper of doubt, that echo of failure, that memory of rejection, what lie are you finally ready to silence forever? Because here's the shocking truth that will either liberate you or terrify you. The 2nd of September isn't just about receiving God's blessing, it's about becoming His weapon. You think you're stepping into comfort. No, chosen one, you're stepping into commission. The Apostle Paul understood this when he wrote in 2 Corinthians 12-9, "My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness." Your weakness isn't your disqualification, it's your activation. Your age isn't your limitation, it's your authority. Your scars aren't your shame, they're your credentials. But the enemy knows what happens when a seasoned saint finally steps into their full anointing. He knows what happens when someone who has walked with God for decades finally stops apologizing for their calling and starts operating in their authority. That's why the resistance has been so fierce. That's why the attacks have been so personal. That's why the warfare has intensified as this moment approached. He's terrified of what you're about to become. Right now, as these words penetrate your spirit, something is breaking in the heavenly realm. Chains that have bound your family line for generations are snapping. Curses that have whispered lies over your bloodline are being silenced. Doors that have remained locked since your childhood are groaning open on rusted hinges. Can you hear it? That rumbling in the distance? That's not thunder, beloved. That's the sound of your breakthrough arriving like a freight train. And nothing, absolutely nothing, can stop what God has already set in motion. But you must choose. Right here, right now, not in 5 minutes when you feel more ready. Not tomorrow when the fear subsides. Not next week when you've thought it through. The river of time is rushing past this moment, and you will never, do you hear me? You will never get this exact opportunity again. Deuteronomy 30-19 thunders across the centuries. "I have set before you life and death, blessing and cursing. Choose life, that you and your descendants may live." Your choice today doesn't just affect you. It rewrites the destiny of your children, your grandchildren, generations yet unborn. What will they say about this moment? That you shrunk back when heaven called, that you chose fear over faith, that you settled for survival when you were offered significance? Or will they testify that on Tuesday, the 2nd of September, 2025, their ancestors said yes to God's impossible invitation and everything changed? The door is open. The moment is here. The call has been issued. But the choice, that sacred, terrifying, life-altering choice that belongs to you alone. Type "I receive" in the comments right now. Not as a whisper, but as a trumpet blast that echoes through every realm of existence. Let heaven know you're stepping through the door. Let hell know its hold on you is broken. Let your future know its deliverer is coming. Share this message with someone who needs to hear it, because your light awakens theirs. Your courage becomes their permission. Your yes becomes their breakthrough. And pray this with me right now, wherever you are. Lord, I will not miss my Tuesday. I will not miss my moment. I will not let fear rob me of the destiny you've prepared. Today I choose the higher timeline. Today I walk through the door. In Jesus' mighty name, amen. The rivers have converged. Chosen one. Which one will carry you home? The ground beneath you has shifted, hasn't it? You felt it the moment those words penetrated your spirit. The 2nd of September isn't just another Tuesday. Something ancient awakened inside you when I said that. Something that's been sleeping for decades suddenly opened its eyes. And now everything looks different. This is the aftershock of awakening, chosen one. And it's only the beginning. You see, most people think revelation is the mountain peak, the moment when lightning strikes and everything becomes clear. But that's where they get it wrong. Revelation isn't the destination. It's the earthquake that cracks open the foundation of everything you thought you knew about your life. And earthquakes have aftershocks. Right now, as these words sink deeper into your soul, you're experiencing the spiritual equivalent of tectonic plates shifting beneath your feet. That restlessness you feel, that's not anxiety. That's your spirit adjusting to a new reality. That confusion about relationships, about decisions you've made, about the path you've been walking, that's the old world crumbling to make room for the new. But here's what terrifies the enemy about moments like this. Here's what he's been working overtime to prevent. When chosen ones like you experience true awakening, you don't just change, you become dangerous to his kingdom. You become a threat to every lie he's built his empire on. The revelation you receive today is real. But listen to me carefully, the world is about to try to shake it from your hands. Your phone will ring with distractions. People will suddenly need your attention for meaningless things. Old patterns will whisper seductively, trying to lure you back to sleep. The enemy knows he has a small window to steal what God just deposited in your spirit, and he will use every weapon in his arsenal. This is why Moses had to climb Mount Sinai alone. This is why Jesus withdrew to the wilderness after his baptism. This is why Paul disappeared into Arabia for 3 years after his Damascus Road encounter. Every divine revelation is followed by a test. Every spiritual earthquake is followed by the battle to stand firm on the new ground. The Israelites experienced this exact phenomenon. Exodus 19:16 tells us that when God descended on Mount Sinai, there was thunder and lightning, with a thick cloud over the mountain and a very loud trumpet blast. Everyone in the camp trembled. They felt the earthquake of God's presence. They witnessed the revelation of his glory. But what happened next? Exodus 32 shows us, while Moses was still on the mountain receiving the commandments, the people grew restless. They couldn't handle the aftershock. They couldn't live in the tension between the old and the new. So they built a golden calf and went back to worshipping what felt familiar. Don't you dare make that mistake. You think I'm being dramatic. You think I'm overstating the stakes. Let me ask you something that will cut straight to your heart. How many revelations have you received over the years that you let slip away? How many times has God whispered your name, shown you a glimpse of his plan, given you a divine download, only for you to let the noise of the world drown it out? How many the 2nd of September NDs have you already missed? That thought should terrify you. Because here's the truth that keeps me awake at night praying for souls like yours. God doesn't give unlimited chances. His revelations come with expiration dates. His doors don't stay open forever. And at 65, 70, 75, 80 years old, how many more opportunities do you think you have left? This isn't manipulation. This is mathematics. This is the cold, hard reality that every day you waste is a day you can't get back. Every moment you choose to let this revelation fade is a moment stolen from the purpose God planted in you before you took your first breath. But there's hope. There's always hope. Because you're still here, you're still listening, your heart is still beating, which means your assignment isn't complete. God isn't finished with you yet. The aftershock you're experiencing right now, that unsettled feeling, that sense that everything is shifting, that's not destruction, that's reconstruction. God is tearing down the false foundations you've built your life on, so he can establish you on the rock that cannot be shaken. Isaiah 28:16 declares, "See, I lay a stone in Zion, a tested stone, a precious cornerstone for a sure foundation. The one who relies on it will never be stricken with panic." The shaking isn't to destroy you, it's to reveal what's truly unshakable in your life. Your faith, your calling, your identity as chosen. But here's the question that will determine your destiny. When the aftershocks come, when doubt whispers, when people question your newfound clarity, when circumstances try to pull you back to the old patterns, will you hold fast to what God revealed to you today? Will you let them convince you it was just emotion? Will you let them explain away the divine appointment as coincidence? Will you let the aftershock shake the revelation right out of your trembling hands? Or will you do what Joshua did when God commanded Israel to cross the Jordan? Will you pick up your stone of remembrance? Joshua 4:7 tells us those stones were to serve as a sign. When your children ask in time to come, "What do those stones mean to you?" then you shall tell them. Your the 2nd of September awakening is your stone of remembrance. And the aftershock you're feeling right now is God's way of asking, will you pick it up? Will you carry it? Will you build your future on this foundation? The world will try to convince you to put it down. They'll tell you you're getting too emotional, too spiritual, too intense. They'll suggest you're having a breakdown instead of a breakthrough. But you know better now, don't you? You know the difference between divine disruption and human destruction. If you refuse to let this moment be stolen, if you're ready to hold on to this promise no matter what aftershocks come, type in the comments, "I hold the promise." Because what happens in the next 48 hours will determine whether this, the 2nd of September, becomes the turning point of your life, or just another date that slipped through your fingers into the graveyard of missed opportunities. The choice is yours, chosen one, but choose quickly. The aftershock is real, but so is the enemy's deadline to steal what God just gave you. Listen to me, beloved. You've stepped through that door on the 2nd of September, and now you're standing in a place most people will never see. But here's what nobody prepared you for. Here's the truth that cuts deeper than any sermon you've ever heard. The moment you awaken to who you really are, the people closest to you become mirrors. Not gentle mirrors that flatter, fire-heated mirrors that reveal everything. Your own children look at you differently now, don't they? That daughter who used to call every Sunday, when was the last time you heard her voice? That son who promised to visit more often, how many months has it been? They see something in your eyes that makes them uncomfortable, something that exposes their own emptiness, their own spiritual poverty. And it hurts like hell, doesn't it? You raised them. You sacrificed for them. You prayed over their beds when fever burned their little bodies. You worked 2 jobs so they could have what you never had. And now they act like you're a stranger. Like the wisdom you've gained through 7, 8, 9 decades of walking with God is somehow embarrassing to them. Here's the shocking truth they don't teach you in church. The people closest to you are like fire-heated mirrors. They don't destroy you. They reveal you. That grandson who rolls his eyes when you mention prayer, he's not rejecting your God, he's rejecting his own conviction. That sister who suddenly finds reasons not to visit, she's not avoiding you, she's avoiding the mirror of her own compromised life that your presence holds up. Jesus knew this. In Matthew 10:36, he said, "A man's enemies will be the members of his own household." Not might be, will be. He wasn't speaking metaphorically. He was preparing you for this exact moment. You think you did something wrong, don't you? You lie awake at 3 a.m. wondering if you became too intense, too spiritual, too different. You question every conversation, every word you spoke. You blame yourself for their distance. Stop, right there. Stop. Those conversations that sting, those silences that ache, those holidays spent alone while they gather without you. They are not punishment, chosen one. They are purification. Think about Daniel. 3 times a day, he opened his windows toward Jerusalem and prayed, even though the king had forbidden it, even though it meant the lion's den, even though everyone around him, including those who worked alongside him, turned against him. But here's what Daniel knew that you're learning now. When you align with heaven, earth becomes uncomfortable. When you carry light, darkness recoils. When you speak truth, lies get exposed. Your very presence has become a conviction to them. Every time they see your peace in chaos, your joy despite loss, your unshakable faith despite their criticism, it exposes their own spiritual bankruptcy. And instead of asking you how to get what you have, they choose to eliminate the mirror. But listen carefully. This is where the mystery deepens. This is where God's strategy becomes clear. Remember the 3 Hebrew boys in the fiery furnace? Everyone expected them to burn alone. But when King Nebuchadnezzar looked into that fire, he saw 4 men walking around. The 4th one looked like the Son of God. The fire didn't destroy them. It revealed who was really with them all along. Your family crisis isn't destroying you, beloved. It's revealing who your real family is. It's exposing who will stand with you when the heat gets turned up. It's showing you who carries the same DNA of faith that flows through your spiritual bloodstream. Look around you right now. In your mind, scan the faces of the people in your life. Who hasn't pulled away? Who still calls? Who still asks for your prayers? Who still values your wisdom? Who still sees the God in you instead of being threatened by him? Those people, write their names down right now. They are not here by accident. They are your covenant tribe, your spiritual family, your kingdom connections. The ones who remain after this fire are not leftovers, chosen one. They are gold refined in the furnace of your transformation. God is not taking your family away. He's revealing your true family. The difference between bloodline and covenant line, between those connected by flesh and those connected by faith, between those who knew you before and those who see you now. This is why the loneliness feels so sharp. This is why the rejection cuts so deep. Because you're not just losing relationships, you're discovering which relationships were real to begin with. But here's the promise that will anchor your soul. Though my father and mother forsake me, the Lord will receive me. Psalm 27:10. When blood family walks away, heaven's family walks closer. You've been thinking this separation is your cross to bear, but it's actually your crown to wear. Every person who can't handle your light is making room for someone who can celebrate it. Every door that closes is God's way of opening a better one. The mirror of relationships doesn't lie, beloved. It reveals. And what it's revealing is this: you are not who you used to be. You cannot be contained by old connections. You've outgrown the boxes they tried to keep you in. So look around you one more time. Who is still standing beside you after the fire? Speak their name in prayer right now. Cover them with your blessing. Seal them under your spiritual authority, because they have proven they can handle the glory you carry. And for those who walked away, bless them too. Release them. Forgive them. Because their leaving wasn't about you. It was about them not being strong enough for the journey you're on. The fire-heated mirror has shown you everything you needed to see. Now it's time to walk forward with those who can handle your light, your truth, your calling. But what happens when you realize that this separation, this refining, was never about relationships at all? What happens when you discover it was preparing you for something far greater than family approval? Chosen one, I need to ask you something that might cut deeper than any surgeon's blade. How many mornings have you awakened at 3 a.m., with tears streaming down your weathered cheeks, whispering to an empty room, "God, have you forgotten me?" How many decades have you carried prayers in your heart like stones, heavy, unmoving, seemingly dead? You've watched your children grow up and move away. You've buried friends who seem to have more faith than you. You've sat in church pews for 70 years, listening to promises about God's perfect timing, while your own clock keeps ticking toward eternity. And deep in the secret chambers of your soul, you've wondered if you missed it. If somehow, somewhere along the way, you took a wrong turn, and God's plan for your life got lost in the shuffle of ordinary days. Listen to me, beloved. The weight you're carrying isn't doubt. It's destiny delayed for divine purpose. You see, there's something the younger generation will never understand about the sacred art of waiting. They live in a world of instant everything, instant coffee, instant messages, instant gratification. But you, dear soul, you've learned something they haven't. You've learned that the most precious things in life come wrapped in time, sealed with patience, and delivered exactly when heaven knows you're ready to receive them. Think about the seed buried deep beneath the frozen winter soil. For months, nothing appears above ground. No green shoots, no flowers, no fruit. To the untrained eye, it looks dead. But beneath the surface, in the darkness and silence, life is stirring. Roots are spreading. Strength is building. The seed isn't dying. It's preparing for a spring explosion that will astound everyone who thought it was finished. That's you, chosen one. That's your story. Moses spent 40 years in the wilderness, tending sheep, probably wondering if the dreams of his youth had been mere fantasies. 40 years of sand and silence. 40 years of watching the sun rise and set on the same mundane routine. His hands grew weathered. His back grew bent. And still, nothing. But then came the day when the ordinary bush became extraordinary. When heaven touched earth in a blaze of divine fire. And God's voice thundered across the desert. "Now, Moses, now is your time." He was 80 years old. 80. The world would have put him in a retirement home, but God was just getting started with him. Abraham waited 25 years for the promise of Isaac. 25 years of looking at Sarah's barren womb and still believing. 25 years of explaining to neighbors why he kept preparing for a child that never came. People mocked him. They called him delusional. They whispered that he'd lost his mind. But Abraham knew something they didn't. He knew that God's delays are not God's denials. He knew that heaven operates on a different calendar than earth. And when Isaac finally arrived, when that 100-year-old man held his promise in his trembling arms, every year of waiting was vindicated in a single moment of miracle. Sarah laughed when she gave birth at 90. Not because it was funny, but because it was impossible. And God specializes in the impossible, especially when his chosen ones have waited long enough to appreciate the magnitude of his intervention. Dear one, right now, at this very moment, there are promises hovering over your life that haven't landed yet. Not because they're lost, but because they're being perfected. Not because God forgot, but because he's waiting for the exact moment when their arrival will create the maximum glory for his name and the maximum blessing for your life. Every unanswered prayer hasn't been ignored, it's been invested. Every closed door wasn't rejection, it was redirection. Every delay wasn't punishment, it was preparation for something so magnificent that if it had come earlier, it would have overwhelmed you. You think you're too old now. You think your season has passed. You think the train has left the station and you're still standing on the platform. But what if I told you that everything, every heartbreak, every disappointment, every year of seeming silence was God positioning you for the greatest chapter of your entire existence? The cocoon doesn't look like much from the outside. Dark, confined, seemingly lifeless, but inside that chamber of restriction, the most beautiful transformation in nature is taking place. The caterpillar isn't dying, it's becoming. And when the butterfly finally emerges, it doesn't just fly. It soars on wings that were formed in the darkness, strengthened by the waiting, perfected by the process. You've been in the cocoon, beloved. The darkness wasn't punishment, it was preparation. The confinement wasn't rejection, it was refinement. And now, on Tuesday, the 2nd of September, 2025, I hear the sound of wings beginning to stretch. Heaven is not late. Heaven is precise. Every second of your waiting has been calculated by divine mathematics that your human mind cannot comprehend, but your spirit knows. Deep down, in that sacred space where faith lives, you know that your time is coming. The desert wanderer doesn't know how much farther the oasis lies, but he keeps walking because something inside him refuses to believe the journey is pointless. That's you, chosen one. You've been wandering in the wilderness of waiting, but the promised land is closer than you think. If you are ready to wait with faith, if you're ready to trust that your delays have been divine appointments, if you're ready to believe that at 70, 80, 90 years old, your greatest miracle is still ahead of you, write these 3 words: no more delay. Because what I'm about to reveal next will show you exactly why the 2nd of September isn't just another Tuesday. It's the day your waiting finally transforms into wonder. Chosen one, as we reach the end of this sacred encounter, I need you to carry these truths with you, like precious stones in your heart. Remember this: Tuesday, the 2nd of September, is not just another date on your calendar. It is your divine appointment, your moment of recognition, your threshold between what was and what will be. The door that opened today doesn't close at midnight, it remains open as long as your faith keeps it so. Remember this: your waiting has not been wasted. Every tear you've shed in the darkness has watered seeds you couldn't see. Every prayer that seemed to echo in empty rooms has been heard and recorded in heaven's eternal ledgers. Moses at 80, Abraham at 100, Sarah at 90. They are your proof that God's greatest works often come wrapped in what the world calls too late. Remember this: you are not broken. You are not forgotten. You are not behind schedule. You are exactly where you need to be, carrying exactly what you need to carry, prepared for exactly what's coming next. But most importantly, remember that you are never walking this path alone. Even when the night feels endless, even when your bones ache with the weight of unanswered questions, even when doubt whispers lies about your worth, the Creator of the universe is working on your behalf. Romans 8:28 isn't just a verse to memorize, it's a promise to stand on. And we know that all things work together for good to them that love God, to them who are called according to His purpose. And right here, in this sacred space we've created together, you have found your tribe. Look at these comments flowing like a river of faith. See these hearts connecting across miles and years. You are surrounded by thousands of souls who understand your journey because they've walked similar paths. We are here. We see you. We believe with you. We will stand with you in prayer. So let me ask you this final question, and let it settle deep in your spirit. If God has brought you through every storm you've faced so far, if He's sustained you through every valley, if He's been faithful in every season, what makes you think He would abandon you now, at the threshold of your greatest breakthrough? Before I release you into your destiny, join me in this prayer. Wherever you are right now, in your living room, your kitchen, your bed, place your hand on your heart and let these words wash over you like healing oil. Almighty God, Father of all comfort, Ancient of Days, I come before you now carrying every precious soul who has walked this journey with us today. Lord, you see their hearts, you know their struggles. You've counted every tear, heard every midnight cry, felt every moment of doubt and desperation. Father, I place my hands on their shoulders right now through your Spirit. Let them feel your presence surrounding them like a warm embrace. For those who are weary, breathe fresh strength into their bones. For those who are broken, let your healing flow through every crack in their hearts. For those who feel forgotten, whisper their names in the chambers of their souls. God, bless their families, their finances, their health, their relationships. Open doors that no man can shut. Close doors that lead to harm. Give them wisdom for every decision, courage for every challenge, and faith that can move every mountain. Lord, let the 2nd of September be their marker stone, the day they remembered who they are, the day they chose faith over fear, the day they stepped through the door you opened. May they never again doubt their worth, question their calling, or believe the lie that their best days are behind them. Surround them with divine appointments, supernatural provision, and people who will recognize the gold you've refined in them through the fire. Let their light shine so brightly that others will be drawn to the hope they carry. In Jesus' mighty name, by His precious blood, through His resurrection power, I seal this prayer over their lives. Let your will be done, your kingdom come, your glory be revealed. Amen and amen. Now, I want to hear from you. In the comments below, share how this message has touched your heart. What is God stirring in your spirit today? What door is He asking you to walk through? Don't hold back. Your testimony might be exactly what someone else needs to hear to take their next step of faith. If you need prayer for a specific situation, ask us. This community will surround you with intercession. If God gave you a word of encouragement while watching, share it. Someone is waiting to receive exactly what He spoke to you. And please, if this message has ministered to your soul, share it with someone who needs to hear it. There's a friend, a family member, a neighbor who's been waiting in their own desert, wondering if God still sees them. Be the voice that reminds them they are not alone. Thank you for staying with me through this entire journey. Thank you for opening your heart, for trusting me with your time, for believing that this word was meant for you. If you haven't already, please subscribe to this channel and ring that notification bell. Every week we gather here to remember who we are, whose we are, and why we're still here. You belong in this family of faith. Until we meet again, walk in the confidence of your calling, rest in the certainty of His love, and remember your greatest chapter is still being written. God bless you, chosen one. The door is open. Your time is now.